our most experienced developers and creatives find the greatest impact from these tools.
Isn't that interesting?
You would have thought it might be the opposite. You would have thought that, hey, if I'm just a beginner, these tools like fix a lot of stuff that I can't figure out, and so make me much more productive. It's actually the opposite. The folks that are the best can use these tools to get, not just twice as productive, 3 times as productive, because they know how to use the tools and they are true orchestrators. And so I think this model of orchestration or co-piloting, or that's going to be the nature of the job.
Synthesia.
One of the challenges in this AI ecosystem is, how do you make it all real? And I think when we think about what's going on, that's the question that WillowTree and other consultancies like us really solve for the marketplace, is to take this ecosystem that, today we've heard a lot of point solutions. There are many point solutions out there. There are many products out there. There's a lot of ideas out there. How do we make it real for the enterprise, especially for larger companies trying to figure out how to navigate this rapidly changing ecosystem, and where should they invest and how do they tie it all together? And the example I like to use is ChatGPT as an example is extraordinarily powerful today, but it can't do some of the simplest things as a consumer that I need done. It cannot, for example, change the address on my Amex account, because to do that, it has to be hardwired into Amex's systems of record. And Amex has to be comfortable that it's trustworthy, that it's not going to hallucinate, et cetera, et cetera. And that's the role that I think an emerging class of consultancies and agencies play, is how to navigate that and how to actually put the pipes into place to tie all this together to realize the value of all that AI can be, and that all these solutions that, for example, we heard today can play. And the way we think about it out of the gate in mid 2023 is really 3 areas to focus on. One is, and I'm going to spend a little time on each of these, is to enable velocity of business processes, especially businesses that are creating content, content broadly defined, and I'll give you some examples of that. But any time that content is being created in a business, the velocity of that should be increasing right now at least a doubling, if not more, of what historical processes have been. 2 is customer service, right? There are all sorts of areas that people talk about that are going to be completely transformed by AI. Software development's one of them. But the top of that list is customer service. I'm going to talk a little bit about our vision for that. And then finally, client-specific solutions. This is related to any large enterprise in the world. They have very specific things they do for their employees. They have very specific things they do for the consumers. How do you use AI to optimize those and select, should we use things that are off the shelf? Should we use products that have been created out in the marketplace? Or should we create custom solutions? And those kind of the 3 categories we think about. So in terms of enabling velocity, here's just some examples. We do, as a company, a lot of engineering for our clients. We do a lot of design for our clients. There are many other processes that can be improved, but this is just what we've seen literally in the last 6 months using tools. In this example, it's using ChatGPT 4, it's using GitHub Copilot, and it's using Midjourney, just those 3 tools. We've been able to create prototypes, to prototype user interfaces in code 50% faster, writing boilerplate, like starting code, straightforward code, 60% faster, unit and feature tests 60 to 70% faster. On the design side, designing feature flows, again, 60 to 70% faster, first draft content 80% faster, and placeholder images 70% faster. These are all really, really important processes when you're building and designing websites, apps, any kind of content, print, otherwise. The expectation should be in all of our businesses that we're able to do these things twice as fast as we were 6 or 12 months ago. And one of the things we do as a company is help clients deploy these tools and train users on these tools to realize that kind of acceleration in very, very short order. And it's completely, it's foundationally changing to the industry. I mean, when we're doing estimates now for clients, how fast can we build an app? How fast can we build a website? It's literally twice as fast as it was 6 months ago. The second big opportunity is, of course, customer service. And that takes on a lot of different facets. I'm using American Airlines as an example here because most of us fly a lot, so we are very, comfortable with what a customer service experience with an airline is. 2, it's very frustrating, especially if you've flown on the East Coast in the last 48 hours. And so when you think about an airline and the touch points, right, they've got outbound marketing that's engaging with their users via notifications, via email. They've got the apps and the websites that people use to buy tickets, but also manage journeys, change journeys, track what's going on, select seats, check in, et cetera, et cetera. And then things go wrong and customer service has to happen. And the first stop is self-serve, right? You want to fix something in the app. The second stop is bots, right? And these have been transformed over the last 6 months by AI, or really over the last 5 years by AI, but especially in the last 6 months. And I think there's a lot of velocity that's going to happen there as those bots get better and better. And the third is humans, right? Complex issues still have to be dealt with by humans. WillowTree was acquired last year by a company called TELUS International, a subsidiary of TELUS, which is one of the largest customer service, customer experience companies on the planet with over 70,000 human agents. And the reason we did that is because we still believe in humans in the loop, right? We still believe that the real magic happens when you try to interact with a bot, when your plane's delayed and you're trying to rebook and it can't do it. And then you hit a tab and you call someone, call a human. Maybe it's a simulated human first and then a real human. But when you get to that human, that human being has the context of the conversation you've been having with the bot, has the context of what you've been trying to do on the website or the app, and that you're pre-authenticated with one tap. And so kind of our concept is the future of customer service ties all this together, heavily, again, influenced by AI and brought forward by the advancements in AI. And then the final piece, and this is where I want to show a quick video, is training. And really interactive training. I think most of corporate training for the last decade has been semi-interactive. We've watched videos, we've had to answer questions, but it's not truly interactive. And the example I want to show you is around a medical student preparing for his or her board exams. This is close to me. My wife's a physician. She went through all the stress of this. When you take your boards, even to this day, you walk into a panel of doctors and they're hammering you with, they give you a case study and they hammer you with questions. And in the past, people have created kind of choose your own adventure versions of this kind of training, but it's really, really hard to do outside of large language models because you can quickly get off the golden path and get yourself to a place where the model just doesn't work anymore. So this, and I think what's exciting about this is using an existing body of knowledge. We were to develop a custom solution in this example. This is just a prototype, but a custom solution literally in weeks. And I think that's the promise of some of these custom solutions that can be built for businesses, right? And so I'm going to give you that example. The other two examples on this page, kind of number one is AI-based customer experiences, right? So that's using things like Midjourney to allow customers to create custom content, right? That could be, the obvious examples are, cards, messages to friends, et cetera, et cetera. But you can get much more advanced. For example, you could do, if you're a grocery chain, custom cakes, all those kinds of things. And those are just kind of very trivial examples as we get deeper and deeper into this, but allowing end users to create custom experiences that are then fulfilled by large companies is an obvious example. Second is redefining workflows. So for example, if you are anyone who's creating content, right, whether you're writing, whether you're a journalist or an author, you kind of follow 4 steps, right? You do a lot of research, talk to a lot of folks, make a lot of notes. Then you write the story. Then you have someone else who independently has to validate the data and the sources. And then finally, you have to create different versions of that media you've created, long form, short form, social media posts, et cetera. We're working rapidly towards a world where the actual content creator, the magic is in step 1, writing the summary and doing the research. A lot of that research can actually get done for you. And then everything else gets spit out automatically on a variety of different AI platforms. And the value that companies like ours provide is tie all those together. But I'll go into the training video now. It's about 1.5 minutes, and then we'll go into some Q&A.
CR.ai, an app to help future doctors learn the skills needed in clinical reasoning. The AI will act as a patient. The user will be a clinician in training, asking questions, ordering tests if needed, and eventually arriving at a diagnosis. Users have the option to type their orders or questions into the form at the bottom, or click on the microphone icon to enable speech to text. Let's get started with this patient. We'll begin by asking about their symptoms. Along the way, the user may ask further questions about the patient's medical, family, and social history. They may ask more questions about the patient's symptoms. If the user is not sure what to ask next, they can click the Get Help button. The AI will then offer suggestions as to what other information could be useful. At any time, the user may order a diagnostic test. The AI will present test results to the user from the perspective of the technician who performed the test. Once a user arrives at a diagnosis, they can click the Get Feedback button. The AI will provide a critique of their questioning. At the conclusion of a session, the user can start a new one by clicking the New Session button at the top right. From here, the user has options for customizing their experience. First, the Select Difficulty drop-down, which will change the patient's personality. The user may also choose a medical specialty. By default, a session will choose a condition at random, but if a user wanted to specialize in cardiology, they can adjust their experience to make sure their next patient will present as a cardiology patient. We've now arrived back at the beginning with a brand new patient. Thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this demo of CR.ai.
So CR.ai doesn't really exist as a product, right? This is something we built as a prototype for a partner in literally 6 to 8 weeks. And I think that's the magic of what we're talking about here, is how fast this can happen with the tools that are available, allowing companies to create really custom solutions for the problems that they're facing or what they're trying to optimize.
What would it have taken you, do you think, without these tools?
I don't know that it would have been possible to get it to this level of fidelity of what simulating a human experience. Yes. I mean, some of this training's been around for a while, but as soon as you started asking things that were off track, or try to adjusting the difficulty level, or ordering diagnostics and analyzing those. I mean, those were very complex things to develop. It would have, if you could have done it, it would have taken a relatively large team on the order of a year or more. And now you can do it with 3-4 folks in 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, really amazing. Now, you mentioned earlier in your talk, you talked about the impact on content-based companies, companies that have a lot of content. But given the way that the world is turned into search first and every company having a marketing agency, isn't every company a content company at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think every company is a content company. Every company deals with content. Every company, both creates and consumes content and is dealing with, I mean, if you kind of at a purely theoretical level, right? And I'm going anti the Yogi Berra quote, but your customer service is nothing but exchanging content in 2 directions, right? And so that's why it's such an ideal place for AI to play, because it's content in both directions. And how do you optimize that?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing you talked about a lot was productivity, and you showed some pretty stunning numbers. You actually made a statement, which I took note of, which said that for these types of tasks, you should just assume you can do them twice as fast as you can today. We're coming off 20 years where, if you just look at US Department of Labor numbers, but we can look at this true in other countries as well, we've really had very modest, some people would say stagnant productivity growth. Most of the benefits of productivity through automation actually economy-wide took place in the 80s and 90s. And really for the last 20 years, we've just been eking out a little bit more in here and creating lots of distractions, I think, for people. But now we have something which you're talking about, like doubling productivity for a lot of these tasks. These ideas that generative AI might give us 3% productivity growth might be significantly understating the impact.
I think they are. I think it's, what is it, Baumol's number or Baumol's conundrum that got developed in the 60s or 70s that said there are certain jobs that are just impervious to productivity improvement, things like the legal profession, things like healthcare, a lot of kind of office work. All the productivity, not all, but a big chunk of it over the last 30 years has been blue collar, right?
Yes.
And now it's coming for the white collar ecosystem. And it's going to be, I think, 3% seems very, very modest. I think we are seeing much, much larger productivity gains. Now, how do you measure productivity? How do you measure, what's the value of an app being developed twice as fast? That's kind of a harder question. So I don't know that the measurement of productivity will actually turn out into the Department of Labor kind of numbers.
Yes.
Because they're really going to know that an app is twice as good or got developed twice as fast. I don't know. But in practical terms, this is a breakthrough that we have just never seen. I mean, lawyers today are about as efficient as they were 30 years ago, plus or minus. Nurses and doctors about as efficient, and this is going to change all that.
Yes. And you mentioned something else in there, which I thought was really interesting. And I think this also leads to productivity. And that's this idea around the growth of the access to information and people be able to do their jobs that much more efficiently. And so there was some conversation in the chat around displacement of jobs, humans in the loop. And you really talked about this idea of enabling humans in the loop and these impervious jobs that have been the sole domain of humans. We're really now talking about this co-pilot era, which moves us into augmentation capabilities as opposed to automation capabilities.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and the word that I've also started using is orchestration.
Yes.
What's not in the numbers that I shared, and I think is actually the most interesting, is that our most experienced developers and creatives find the greatest impact from these tools.
Isn't that interesting?
You would have thought it might be the opposite. You would have thought that, hey, if I'm just a beginner, these tools fix a lot of stuff that I can't figure out, and so make me much more productive. It's actually the opposite. The folks that are the best can use these tools to get, not just twice as productive, 3 times as productive, because they know how to use the tools and they are true orchestrators. And so I think this model of orchestration or co-piloting that's going to be the nature of the job. People ask me a lot, are you worried that you have a company that's 2/3 software developers. Are you guys going to become obsolete? And I say not at all, because when anyone who's involved in any kind of software development or creative, they know that the backlog for software projects at most companies are 2 or 3 years long, right? So the need for what folks do is going to continue to increase. And I think just like any innovation, people are going to figure out cooler new things to build, right? So people are going to want to build things. They're just going to be able to build them 2 or 3 times as fast as they were in the past. And that's, it's going to unleash an extraordinary amount of creativity. It is going to really punish organizations that don't make the change quickly, because this is one of those changes that, in 6 or 12 months, if you haven't made massive improvements in productivity, you're going to start, I think, feeling it out in the marketplace.
I think that's right. And it's really interesting to me too, that you've actually done a number of these projects already for enterprises. This was not really on the radar last year. And then all of a sudden, on everybody's top burner, big priority to do something this year. But we all know corporate enterprise cycles, they take a long time usually to metastasize. But I see people doing work right away. They want to get a proof of concept. They want to see how they can get to production. My guess is this year has a lot of activity. Next year is going to have a lot of production systems being implemented, because these POCs are proving out what you've just talked about in terms of twice as fast, 50% productivity gains.
100%. Totally agree.
And I think the copilots, they up-level everybody, but I think this probably is true. The more expert you are in a domain, the more you're able to leverage these things, because you know how to get the most out of these models. And that's what's going to be one of the things that everyone's going to have to learn. It's not just how to get things out of the model, but understand their own domain better, so they have the right language, they can do the right thing. So this has been great, Tobias. I really appreciate
Thanks, Brett.
checking that out. Everyone should go check out WillowTree. They're doing some really interesting work in the space.
Synthetia. Synthetia.substack.com. Synthetic media, virtual humans, voice clones, deepfakes, AI image and text generation, news and more.